Welcome back to another episode of the Phoenix Truth Rising Show. This is the Spaceman 2.0 and here to help you grow in the knowledge and the wisdom of truth. And the truth shall set you free. So, welcome back to part 19 of From Here to Armageddon. And let's just recap what we started with on the last part 18 at the end of it. You can destroy the gremlins. So this is the most important, some of the most important info you can ever have in your mind and your heart, and to know this technique for destroying such etheric entities. Okay, so with that said, let's carry on. You can destroy the gremlins. The technique for destroying such etheric entities is to command them in the name of Jesus Christ to disappear and to cease to exist. In the name of Emmanuel, Christ, or Sananda, or Creator, or is quite as sufficient. It is that for so long now the term Jesus has been accepted that the name is most distasteful to the DBBs. It is further not sufficient to order them to simply depart, as that does not entail disintegration of the entity, only departure. This is where you get the saying, there are gremlins in the machinery. If a machine keeps breaking down, there are also good little fairies, so I do not wish to be lopsided. However, gremlins serve a very definite purpose, and brothers, those particular entities are originated on the dark side. The DBBs can also manipulate many of the currents and elemental forces which are most attuned to them in vibration. For example, although the element fire is a great purifying power on the earth plane, it is also attuned to the notion of karma, the trial by fire, and the destruction of that which is consumed, especially when the fire is burning coal coming from the darkness beneath the surface of the earth. The DBBs are enabled to manipulate it to their own ends. We should emphasize that such use of fire cannot be allowed to be kept outside of that called for in a karmic aspect. But the karmic burden of the race as a whole is still so great that the DB has great latitude in terms of how they may wish to use this elemental force. Another process at work in relation to fire is the manner in which human beings provide the energies which manifest in many of the fires which destroy property. Fire is a phenomenon which most closely corresponds to rage and anger. These connections of fire with anger are no accident. When any two persons indulge in a fiery argument with much shouting and anger, but without giving full vent to the anger in a physical way, there is created at the etheric level a seething cloud of fire-like energy which seeks expression on the earth plane. If it cannot find expression in violence between the two persons who created it, then it will, given the right circumstances, release itself in a destructive fire. Of course, some spark must be present to allow the fire to begin, but once it is initiated, its full fury will manifest. If that type of energy is stored within, make sure you cleanse it with spiritual water, brothers. Possession. Finally, the DBBs are able to literally take over certain persons for brief or prolonged periods of time, and through them carry out specific actions. This can even happen to those who are normally of a spiritual nature, if such persons open themselves up to the dark forces. Most opening up comes through overindulgence in alcohol, for it is the one most abused altering substance. When one takes alcohol into the system in any form, an access opens at the back of the head, through which the darker forces, if they put enough effort into it can gain access. Let me assure you that in this group, any effort is not too much. Much can be accomplished in a short time by one properly placed, and the DBBs will normally only undertake this procedure if it promises to yield rich dividends for them. In the instance of a couple, often years are lost to light service because one or the other of the pair are kept in an addiction for that specific reason. Again, you must command the energy to withdraw and depart in the name of the Christ. It will go, for it is obligated to do so. It does not mean it will go willingly, without a struggle, or instantly. However, if attended diligently, it will depart every time. Although I have set forth the main techniques by which the DBBs seek to influence humans in incarnation, I must point out that there are many instances which do not fall into the categories I have described. In every case, however, the seeker or worker whose intuition is open, is alert, and asks for proper guidance, will be able to decide for himself when the DBBs are behind any particular manifestation on the earth plane. They are, remember, required to wear a clue. Dharma, let us close for today, for if we set the stress on the wrist muscles too intently, we will be delayed on the morrow. There is too much material to finish easily at this sitting. I am most indebted to you for your willing service, and I shall not mention Simon Peter again this day. So be it, and salute. I am Ashtar to stand by. Out. So we finally finished Chapter 8. We're moving on to Chapter 9. Chapter 9. On Wednesday, September 6, 1989, at 6:45 a.m. And in this, it's called Year 3, Day 021. Ashtar present, ready to resume. Please clear your space that we do not have negative impact upon these writings. Trials along the path, sexual misadventure, and money. As ones become followers of the lighted pathway, the native Indians call it the Red Road. There are incredible trials ahead. I am going to speak of them in the order of severity of impact. The DBBs really go to work on your weaknesses and try to drag ones away from their good intentions. They play to the ego, greed, and power drives of individuals, and I warn you to look around you and see the impact upon your world this very day in these separate but united areas. Always as it relates to humankind, sexual indulgence and greed for money always head the list unless one is already into some physical addiction, which produces need enough to overpower these two. Mostly it is all wrapped up into one package. I'm going to read that again. Always as relates to humankind, sexual indulgence and greed for money always head the list unless one is already into some physical addiction which produces need enough to overpower these two. Mostly it is all wrapped up into one package. At some point on the path, as we will refer to it henceforth, the seeker will be presented with these pitfalls. When one embarks on the path, there is a phenomenon which tends to lend to him a greater allure or attractiveness. He will have a radiance about him which is most magnetic. In most cases, that attractiveness is not directly from any increase in personal magnetism of sexual nature, but rather there is an additional factor of power and knowledge automatically called into the person's aura. It is this additional power which others seek, or others sense, but because people today are so accustomed to interpreting this kind of impact in sexual physical terms, they mistakenly see the seeker as desirable. Indeed, there is an enhanced attractiveness, but it is by no means at the sexual level. It usually pops its ugly head forth when a man who is not on the path becomes enamored of women who are, or as often, women who are on the path or involved in some manner or other fall into the trap of a man who was corrupted at the lead of the flock on the path. We will name no names on this document, but I know that you can name several instances which have spelled disaster for the humans involved. Most of the involved parties will not understand the dimension of the situation and just why they appear so attractive. The testing, of course, is for the seeker and is also the most destructive. With the greater perceived attractiveness, beauty, and serenity to others, and the propensity of others to read their own reactions in sexual terms, there is often an abundant opportunity for the seeker to indulge himself sexually if he so chooses. Exaggerated indulgence and misuse of the gift of procreation desires are the leading downfall of man and the evil projections of its okay and open marriages and understanding experiences if it doesn't hurt anyone, seem to be the cop-out within or without the marriage contract. It is not okay, and no law written by man will make it okay. Misuse of that one pleasure has led your world to its death. It is not love, it is a struggle for power, control, pleasure, and self-indulgence. It will render the indulger helpless to further attacks. Exaggerated behaviors will ultimately pull the seeker off the path because it would sidetrack his energies into exhausting pursuity, clandestine arrangements, and drag his attention down to the purely physical level of such indulgence. Many potential seekers have succumbed to this elementary trap and have been lost to the hierarchy as really useful instruments for the salvation of the race of man, and pulled the partners in crime to destined loss. Now let's talk about the next deadly trap, money. As the seeker acquires more and more ability in terms of helping his brothers, the opportunity in invariably presents itself to make money from his spiritual endeavors. The main point here is not how much money should be charged for spiritual help, but what are the true desires in the heart of the seeker. For some seekers, because their services require them to assume certain expenses, a relatively large levy is justified and does not represent a failure in this testing process. For others, even a small charge would represent taking personal advantage of a gift from God, which was meant to be shared freely with all, just as God gave the gift most freely, and therefore this levy represents failure of the test. Each seeker must look into his own heart on this matter, for it is his own judgment which is written down in the scrolls of heaven. Those life scrolls always hang there as the sword of Damocles. I can't pronounce that properly. In every matter of choice, and always, it is what is within that gets noted there. It is interesting that these two tests of which I have just spoken relate to the vows which monks and priests of many religions have traditionally taken throughout the centuries. The two most significant vows have always been that of chastity and of poverty. By having individuals take these two vows, the Church, of course, was allowing the soul to sidestep these temptations which would surely be placed in his path. By subscribing in such a manner to these vows, the soul effectively makes a promise which it feels is very binding upon it. And because of this feeling of being bound, the soul tends to be less likely to fall into these manners. It obviously is not always effective, and these later days of evil conflict, it causes the churches to rewrite the laws rather than lose all their teachers. So this is a good place to stop for this segment. We'll continue further with the chapter 9 and get into how about some self-esteem and how they pick on our esteem, and that's how we get affected by the DBBs. So hopefully you have a great day, and this helps you understand the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So with that being said, this is Spaceman 2.0 with the Phoenix Truth Rising show, here to help you grow. And this is From Here to Armageddon, part 19. Part 20 is coming up soon. Have a great day and a great night wherever you are. Thanks for watching, listening, and hopefully subscribing and hitting that like button. I appreciate it. And any subscribers I have, I appreciate. If I help just one person out there, then I've done my job. Spaceman 2.0 and